Nancy Pelosi just fucking absolutely currently going sicko mode on the conservative Democrats, some of which she literally fucking caused to get reelected. Like Henry Cuellar is part of the 9, right? I think he's part of the conservative 9. If you guys remember in the Texas district that he was running, and he's known as like literally the most conservative Democrat in the country. And Pelosi straight up like tanked the chances that Cuellar's tanked the chances of Cuellar's opponent
3 months
winning. Was it Jessica Cisneros? I'm like trying to remember off the top of my mind, so I'm so sorry if I'm fucking up the names, but like Cisneros was literally like fucking 27 years old, actually interned with Cuellar, fucking progressive as shit. She's awesome. She's gonna run again. She's gonna win like 100%. But wild that Nancy Pelosi was like, hey, you know, the buck stops at buck stopping Biden, and the buck stops at buck stopping Pelosi. Okay, so exciting stuff. So I don't know what the fuck's happening here, but I'm kind of loving the fucking vibes. Okay, I'm loving the fucking vibes that are being put out by the Democratic Party. I'm a fucking centrist now. I'm a centrist lib, as you guys know. I love capitalism. I love centrism. I love liberalism. These are all the things that I love. As you guys know, I'm fucking libbed up, baby. I'm libbed up. I'm sheeshing, dude. I'm sheeshing at fucking what the liberals are doing so far. Anyway, all jokes aside, I mean, they're all fucking corrupt assholes, but you know, every now and then they
5 months
end up doing the right thing when it's fucking way too late for the most part. Henry Cuellar is an anti-choice Dem and sucks 2 big ones. He sucks 10 big ones. He's literally one of the worst Democrats in a sea of like, you know, horrifyingly bad Democrats. I mean, look, bad Democrats is a target-rich environment, okay? There's a lot of those motherfuckers that are just bad. But goddamn, dude, Henry Cuellar takes the cake. Probably the worst Democrat in Congress. Anti-choice. He's also massively reactionary against immigrants, which, of course, he himself is, you know, not white, but very reactionary against fucking immigration. Like, just awful person overall. And almost got fucking owned by his intern. So, you know, shouts out to Jessica Cisneros. She's fucking awesome. I can't wait for her to have a position of prominence in the Democratic Party. There's a lot of fucking people out there in the Democratic Party that are very progressive, out and about socialists, very progressive, running for local elections in 2022. That's going to be really exciting too. You know, I can't wait to fucking stack the deck, boys.
Hot.
How is Joe Manchin not the worst? I mean, Joe Manchin is like the most prominently bad one. You know what I mean? Andrew Cuomo's officially gone.
I remember you was conflicted.
Jimmy Dore is a ivermectin frog now.
Abusing my power, full of resentment.
Jordan Klepper is did a video with the hogs, so we'll do hog watch in a little bit. We got Donnie O'Sullivan talking to the anti-vaxxers at the Alabama rally. Anyway, Dr. Anthony Fauci's FDA approval on the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine. Let's hear what he has to say.
Advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci joins us now to discuss. Good morning to you, Dr. Fauci. It's good to see you. We just heard in David's piece how students say that they will now get the vaccine because it has now been FDA approved. How much of a game changer do you think that this will be?
I give the Liberals.
Well, I think it's going to be very important from 3 standpoints, Gail. When you have a vaccine that's fully approved by the FDA, there are a certain percentage of unvaccinated but eligible to be vaccinated people.
Okay, chat, should I keep replying to the same fucking idiotic arguments over and over again, or do you think I've like no, don't time him out for 10 minutes, just ban him, or do you think I've like given enough attention to these idiotic takes? Just ban and move on, right? Hey, democracy, baby.
About 30.
You have now been democratically chosen to be a participant in Gulag.
80% of them who are reluctant to get vaccinated now will go ahead and get vaccinated. So that's a pretty good chunk.
Dr. Fauci, how far away do you think we are from full approval for Moderna and Johnson & Johnson?
Hi, Hassan. Was wondering if you have.
I don't think it's too far away because both of those products were a bit behind in the initiation of their EUAs and then in the submission, obviously, of a lot of material that is required for a BLA. So I think it's a temporal issue. I don't think there's anything different necessarily about the process. It's just that they submitted or are submitting their material a bit later.
Are we talking about
after Pfizer did?
Are we talking about weeks, do you think? Months?
Do I
still?
get a room in the mansion now?
You know, it's difficult to predict because issues may come up with the FDA. I would imagine, knowing the differences in times of the submission of their EUA, that it likely would be a matter of a month or so, but not a lot more than that.
Dr. Fauci, how close with this approval and the two other approvals that are likely to be forthcoming soon, how close are we to getting back to some sense of normalcy where there are fewer guidelines and we don't think about the coronavirus on a daily basis?
You know, that's going to be up to us. And when I say up to us, I mean it's really how many people get vaccinated, how many people step up and say, you know, we've had enough of this. We've got to put an end to this terrible outbreak that's completely disrupted our lives.
What is that threshold?
So we have the vaccines available. You know, the threshold is something that we don't know. And the reason I say we don't know it is because you have to get to a situation like with measles, where you were like way 90+% of people were vaccinated and really got that kind of what we call herd immunity. You know what that number is because when it gets below that number, you start to see outbreaks like we saw some time ago in the New York City area with Hasidic Jewish people who were not getting vaccinated. But right now, if you've never been there, you don't know whether that's 80, 85, 90%. You just don't know. And when you don't know, the thing to do is to just do whatever you can to get as many people vaccinated as you can. And when you reach that point, you'll know it because you won't have any infections. But you really can't accurately predict what that number is.
Let's go back, Dr. Fauci, to the stepping up part, because if more people got the vaccine, we would be out of this much sooner. You know, the science has shown that. And I heard you say that if people get it, we could maybe get back to normal in spring of 2022. So what do you say to people that think this FDA process was rushed? You know, that how do we know that this is safe? Can you just hit on that a second? And how did you come up with spring of 2022?
Yeah. Well, let me answer your first question. First of all, Gail, it wasn't rushed. They meticulously went over every bit of data. Spring of 2022 is just an estimate, Gail. It means that if we can get a large majority, overwhelming majority of the people vaccinated, and we get through the winter okay, because remember, we're going to have the complication of influenza and other respiratory illnesses. If we can get through the winter okay, and we can get those people vaccinated, that 80 million or so who are not vaccinated, I estimate, and it's purely an estimate, that by the time we get to the spring and people come outdoors again as opposed to being inside, I believe that we can get to some degree of normality.
It's not happening. All right. God is separating the sheep. God is separating the sheep from the goats. That's what Trump supporters are saying. They're goats now. They ain't sheep, they're goats. Friend of the show, Donnie O'Sullivan, went to Alabama. Let's see what he had to say.
At the top of the program about the FDA's decision to fully approve the Pfizer COVID vaccine and how it just might change the landscape for those people who've been, at least many of them, who've been on the fence about getting one. This came after the former president spoke at an Alabama rally over the weekend, and while he received his usual full-throated welcome, when it came to that vaccine, many who came to hear him had no support for either the vaccine or of him telling them they should get the vaccine, which he did. CNN's Donnie O'Sullivan was there. He talked to his supporters about the vaccines at the time pending approval. Here's his report.
No, not getting that vaccine. No, no, no, no, no. Them vaccines are not good, huh?
Are you vaccinated?
No, but I have a lot of hydrochloroquine and zinc at my house.
So have you got your vaccine shot?
Nope, don't want it.
No? Wait.
They ain't tested it enough, from my opinion.
Yeah. The fight.
Yeah, her opinion. It's like, what is your opinion? Are you capable of crafting two independent thoughts in your mind? What is your opinion? Like, yeah, when you're an anti-vaxxer you basically are looking at that lady and going, I do not care about the accumulative, collective fucking like scientific accomplishments of millions and millions of man hours, okay? That like professionals who have dedicated their entire lives to this, to finding, you know, technological, medical achievements like this, okay? And I care about this person. Like this person's opinion actually is, holds the same level of weight, okay? As like all of the other shit that I just mentioned. People unfortunately just think that like if they go against the grain, if they're just contrarian in general, and there's a lot of this, right? But if they go against the grain, that means that they are automatically onto something.
Pfizer shot is about to get full FDA approval. Would that change your opinion on it at all?
Not until they do a whole lot more investigating in on it.
Yeah.
Nothing's
like this is not about investigating. Like there is no amount of investigation that will be conducted that will allow this psycho, this hog, to finally be like, all right, that's good. I'm doing it now. I'm doing it now. That's right.
going in me until then.
Right. Do you think that would take a long time?
About 10 years or so.
I don't trust the government. I don't trust CDC. I don't trust none of them.
What is it about the vaccine that?
Because I've watched Dr. T. Penny, and she's done a lot of research on it.
Dr. Sherry Tenpenny is a discredited conspiracy theorist.
So I'm new to your streams, and I was wondering if I should get the vaccine. My parents say I should, but my grandparents don't think I should. My grandparents were doctors/nurses, so I don't really know what to do. First of all, I hope your grandparents got fucking vaccinated, or else they're literally going to die. There's no two ways about it. The moment they step foot outside and they're your grandparents, and they fucking come in contact with someone with COVID, they're just dead. Okay, so you should probably stress that to them. Secondly, I don't know about your personal grandparents and their doctorate degree, or you know, them being nurses, but 98% of doctors have gotten the COVID vaccine. So I'm pretty sure doctors overall consider the COVID vaccine to be safe. So you know, you can remember that or remind that to your grandparents. Yes, definitely get the vaccine. Okay, it's safe. And if you, God forbid, get COVID, you will be able to breeze through it in comparison to people who get the vaccine and can't, or who don't get the vaccine and can't. Okay, the overwhelming majority, if not nearly the entirety of the fucking severe cases of COVID in American hospitals at this moment are still unvaccinated people. Okay?
Who pushes dangerous misinformation about vaccines.
I'm sure you've seen the pictures all over the internet of people who've had these shots.
50% of nurses haven't gotten vaxxed. How do we convince the public to get it if nurses still haven't? Tell them the doctors trump nurses. And that, you know, the qualifications for being a nurse, I'm sorry, do not require the same kind of fucking scientific, or they require the same kind of fucking education as for doctors. Okay? And the number is also fake with respect to like nurses. It's not 50, it's 85. I don't know why people always say 50. 85% of nurses are vaccinated, dude. That's like literally a fucking lie. I hear it all the time, and I just like don't even talk about it, but like that's also wrong. I think it's from like an older article from July or something. Disparities in COVID-19 vaccination coverage. It's a lot higher. 2% are in Alabama and Mississippi. My workplace, 80% now are positive for COVID. 83 people total. I know most went to this rally. Dude, why are you mad? Let these dipshits die of COVID. It doesn't work that way, man. You can't. Like, I think I've talked too much about how fucking hogs, if they die, whatever. But like, as much as it's like fun to watch conservative commentators that like believe their own bullshit, that urge people not to get vaccinated and then don't get vaccinated, unlike the fucking politicians and the Fox News commentators that absolutely have gotten the vaccine and booster shots and shit. They're vaccinated out the wazoo. Unlike those guys, there are a lot of dumbass conservative commentators who don't get the vaccine and then fucking die. And that's pretty funny. Like, that's funny. That's an incredibly funny situation. I'm sorry. I don't give a fuck that you died. You are a disgusting human being that probably caused a lot of death and destruction in the same, you know, communities that you exist in by spreading misinformation. So yeah, if you die, I'm going to make fun of you. Remember that. You are letting the libs own you when you fucking die. Okay? The moment that you die and I see your fucking Facebook post about how like COVID is fake and it turns you gay or whatever, I'm going to make fun of you. So just keep that in mind. So don't fucking die. Okay? I know you think it won't happen to you, but it very well can. I did talk about Phil Valentine. I did make fun of Phil Valentine a lot. Yeah, I think we've talked about it too much now. Myself and other chatters are losing friends and family that we care about the COVID because they fell for the propaganda. Yeah, these people that are fucking dying of COVID and refusing to get the vaccine are still victims, okay? If they themselves are not like the influencer famous people that are like spreading this fucking propaganda willingly, then they're victims of misinformation. So you have to remember that. So yes, of course I believe that like everyday people, no matter how hog-like they are, should not fucking die. That's not a good thing. Okay? It's not. It's not a good thing at all. My 54-year-old cousin died of COVID, but I feel nothing since he literally said to me during the peak of the pandemic that he didn't care if he was potentially killing people by not wearing a mask. I mean, that's really fucked up. But not every single person is like this. Okay, so anyway, let's see what else Dhoni was doing.
So now they're magnetized. They can put a key on their forehead, it sticks. They can put spoons and forks all over them and they can stick.
These are like also so laughably easy to disprove. That's another like incredibly funny part of this process is like the things that they're posting, the things that they're saying are so easily dismissed and so easily disproved. So it's additionally fucking hilarious that like, you know, that is what's getting people to believe their bullshit.
Those and other unhinged false claims landed Tenpenny on a list known as the Disinformation Dozen, super spreaders of COVID misinformation.
These 12 people are out there giving misinformation. Anyone listening to it is getting hurt by it. It's killing people. It's bad information.
But Tenpenny and others in the Disinformation Dozen are finding appeal among some Trump supporters.
My own doctor tried to get me to get the shot, and I told him to go watch Dr. T. Penny.
So you trust this woman on the internet more than your own doctor?
I do.
To listen to the internet or to listen to, rather than the professionals, the scientists, the CDC, the FDA, if you look at the history of vaccine, it's been, again, the greatest gift we've ever been given. People today wouldn't be at any of these events. They would either have polio, they would have smallpox, they would have many other diseases. Vaccines have saved us.
Trump came here to Alabama Saturday.
Unfortunately, if you ask me, sometimes I think to myself, oh, it's wonderful, you know, medical achievements have allowed human beings to greatly extend their average life expectancy, and then other times I'm like, maybe it's not so good, you know? Maybe we should just like let the fucking plague take us all out. God damn, dude. In my most doomer moments, that's how I feel sometimes.
It's the state with the lowest vaccination rate in the nation, and at the time of this rally, every ICU bed here was full.
What do the people that keep spreading misinformation get out of this? I'm guessing money. So there's a couple different reasons. Think about it this way. What do the people that are like, socialists got a fucking $2.7 million house, Omega lol, he's so fake, get out of like trying to extend the controversy multiple days when there's no controversy there at all? Clout. Okay? It's the exact same attitude for a lot of these other like micro-influencers that want to take advantage because they see a lot of people, they see a lot of fucking people spreading misinformation or looking for misinformation because we have this like baked in skeptical mindset. We're very entitled. We're very selfish. We're very individualistic in America. And unfortunately, we don't really have a lot of, you know, we don't have great education, great critical thinking. So it's a slam dunk. It's the easiest way to fucking generate income. Right? Yes, I saw the Discord mod chat. I did. Right? So that's one thing. Right? So that's like the easiest reason for why people get involved in this, because there's like a built-in network. There's already a fucking built-in network of like fans that you can immediately latch onto and like, you know, become a micro-influencer. The other reason is because a lot of these, like the Disinformation Dozen, for example, they make money. They get clout. They find like a massive audience and then they can sell additional supplements to that massive audience. So what that means is, like, oftentimes a lot of these other people have alternative cures that they're shilling. If you notice, like, most of these influencers have something to sell you, whether it's a t-shirt that's like a cultural signifier. Like, they'll either sell you like a t-shirt that says, like, I'm not wearing a fucking face stopper, like, fuck you, you know, I'm not letting this vaccine kill me. You know, they'll sell you like merchandise or something like that. Or they will directly sell you alternative cures, like that famous doctor in Florida, the holistic medicine guy, is shilling a bunch of different supplements like zinc and all this other shit on his website. Okay? A lot of these other like alternative medicine people are selling you different things to make money. So it all still goes back to the interest to make money. Kind of like your merch. Yeah, exactly like my merch, because I sell alternative products like my merchandise that has chicken tendies on it, you know. Anyway, there's unfortunately a big market with a lot of idiots there for disinformation. Yeah. Wasn't there a cult leader or something who died of one of these supplements? What merch, motherfucker? I'm just curious. Oh, here we go. Just curious, Andy. Knowing about the negative effects of past rush vaccines, polio, swine flu, what's the threshold of skepticism should be acceptable? What is the past rushed vaccines? What incredible fucking website are you going to send me information from? Just curious, Andy. Please, Eris Colt, enlighten us with your weird fucking vaccine skepticism website that will talk about how, like, we eradicated polio, but also at the same time, like, you know, people started growing a third eye or something. Like, you know how there's that classic fucking meme where it'll be like, cats are not as dangerous to the ecosystem as once thought, and there'll be like an article and someone will say, like, did the cat write this? Did cats write this article? Sharks are actually not like dangerous. Did the shark write this article? Sometimes I feel like fucking polio is writing the article in the chat. Hello, I'm a representative of the Polio Bureau, and I decided, like, you know, the vaccine against polio is actually really deadly. And it's like, what are you, like, siding with fucking polio? The only negative consequence of the polio vaccine is that we eradicated polio, you dumb fuck. And even then, it's like, yeah, if the original fucking processes that predate, like, modern medicine and what we fucking know about now, and our rigorous testing measures that exist currently are there specifically to fucking, you know, prevent any sort of like complications from occurring when there is a mass when there's like mass vaccination campaigns happening.
His timid suggestion his supporters should get the shot was met with jeers.
And you know what? I believe totally in your freedoms. I do. You got to do what you have to do. But I recommend take the vaccines. I did it. It's good. Take the vaccines. But no, that's okay. That's all right. You got your freedoms. But I happen to take the vaccine. If it doesn't work, you'll be the first to know. Okay?
Trump got the vaccine, though.
Yeah, they keep saying that. I don't know that. I mean, I'm not fully convinced of that.
You don't think Trump got it, huh?
I don't think he did.
Yeah.
I really don't.
The chance of you dying from COVID is something like 1%, and only 0.00001% of people who got the vaccine die. Why not take the chance with the vaccine? Even fucking less than that, but yeah.
In so many people's minds.
That's what I've said this a million times over. You make dice rolls every time you fucking walk out of your apartment and get in a goddamn car. A significantly higher chance of dying when you're driving over to get the fucking vaccine than actually dying from the vaccine or dying from COVID. So I don't understand why you would, roll the dice on nature rather than fucking scientific accomplishments when, like, it is literally anti-human. Okay? It's like against everything that we've done. You're a Luddite. You're basically saying, like, yeah, I don't trust the scientific accomplishments. Like, you're already doing that, though. You're doing that in every part of your life without recognizing it. I do not understand how you wouldn't do the dice roll here as well. You do that when you live in a fucking city, dog. Like, there's a reason why we have developed societal formations near large bodies of fucking water so we could ensure survival. And you're basically saying that is, you know, I'd rather take the dice roll, live in a fucking cave, and keep trying to hunt and gather on my own. Hey, yo, fuck this wheel shit, dog. I don't know about this. You know? I think I'm just going to keep carrying everything on my own. I don't know about this wheel shit.
Many people who don't want to get the shot. This is a Republican-Democrat thing.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we know, but I will tell you, I don't personally see that virus came over here on a donkey or on an elephant, and it's affecting everybody.
I watch Prophets of God and Newsmax and maybe a little Fox. That's about it. That's about it.
Right. That's where.
But I've kind of turned away from news. I don't want to listen to it. I want to listen to what God's saying.
Yeah, God, i.e. her fucking Facebook feed, too. I mean, dude, I keep repeating myself in a lot of these videos that we watch, but, you know, I guess it bears repeating, but it's like, the irony is they're so skeptical of, like, the FDA and these authorities and science and all that stuff, and I can't fully fault them for it. Obviously, there's a lot to be skeptical of there, especially as it pertains to, like, capitalist profit motive interests that pharmaceutical corporations may or may not have, and the profound amount of influence they have over the government. But then they have no skepticism towards fucking Brett Weinstein and all these other snake oil salesmen. It's like, dude, you literally are you're just like, nope, that's it. This guy knows the truth that everyone else is unaware of. I'm a medical doctor. The original polio vaccine was contaminated with another virus called SV40, which is purposely purported by some people to maybe have played a role in human cancers. That being said, the harm caused by polio far outweighs the harm that was maybe done by contaminated vaccines. Modern vaccines aren't produced by the same means of manufacturing with live cells and cannot be contaminated with other viruses.
What he's fixing to do, that's all I'm concerned about. I think it is a time where God is separating the sheep from the goats.
What are you?
I am I'm a goat because I ain't a sheep. I'm not doing what they tell me to do. I'm fighting against it.
Yeah. Dying of a preventable complication is actually God's will, inshallah.
Antonio Sullivan joins us now. Do you think the former president saying that he got the shot, although you said it was timid, nevertheless he did say it, do you think it convinced anyone?
No, it didn't seem like that, Anderson. I mean, and I think that is something that Trump knows. We know Trump likes to take credit for things, and he can, in many respects, take credit for the development of this vaccine. But he knows that so many in his base do not want to take this shot. It is a red line for them. And it's really remarkable to hear, you know, so many folks we've spoken to do not want to be, as that woman described it, a sheep. They don't want to take this vaccine. They view it as a political statement also.
Isn't goat like... If you're so into like biblical interpretations, aren't goats literally most commonly fucking used as like the devil? That's why the devil looks like a goat. It's actually the sheep that's being herded to salvation, whereas the goats are like literally the devil. Like, how do you not fucking see that?
Almost. And some folks are so intent on not becoming part of this herd of sheep, they're going as far as taking medicine for horses. So it is a very troubling situation here. And as you heard from that public health official, Judy Smith, in our piece, some folks are only willing to take the shot once they see a family member or loved one really, really sick in hospital.
Let's go, boys. Time for the fucking second Hog Watch. Jordan Klepper debates anti-vax mandate protesters in New York City. As far as I know, the goat only became Satan to turn Baphomet into something profane and heretic. In the book of Revelations, the sheep represent the people who go to heaven, LMAO. It doesn't matter. It's illogical, and it's also illogical even in the illogical systems that they supposedly believe in, okay? That's the best part about it, is that, like, the best part about this process is that, like, they will build up a value system that is purely on, like, nonsensical, ideological, cultural signifiers, like, you know, loving God and all this other shit, right? And they don't even apply the same fucking symbolisms within their own perpetrated ideological system that they've crafted. Like, they're breaking the rules that they themselves have created. The video.
Normally when I'm in search of an angry mob of people screaming anti-science, deep state, vaccine, microchip, conspiracy jazz, I head to the heartland of America. But it turns out I can find those very
I gotta
same
pee, I'll be
people
back.
right here in my own backyard in New York City.
That's right. Last week, outside of Mayor Bill de Blasio's home, there was a group protesting his new mandate that customers show proof of vaccination in order to enter restaurants, gyms, and theaters. It was a mix of hardcore anti-vaxxers, people who are okay with vaccines but hated the mandate, and then, of course, some people who put together a Joker costume once, loved the attention, so now that's pretty much all they do.
I'm the only one in my family that hasn't gotten the vaccine. It's not approved by the FDA. I don't know what's in that. Women are miscarrying. People are having their DNAs wiped out.
What? What do you mean, like completely wiped out?
Yeah, they're telling women that it's okay for you to get the vaccine.
What does it mean their DNA is wiped out?
Like their immunity is getting wiped
Because I was
out.
saying, like, COVID wiped out 600,000 DNAs.
Yes, of course, you know?
Actually, some people have died from the vaccine. Don't believe me, go to the media, go to the Google or...
Some people have died from COVID.
Yes.
So many more than from the vaccine.
One thing with me, I try not to argue facts.
I don't believe that suggesting strongly and coming out with mandates for vaccine.
I love that. It's just like everything is in air quotes. When you drop air quotes on it, it's just like 90% of conservative commentary unironically revolves around just like saying something that is completely logical and good, but doing it in a way where you're like using the baby voice. This is the Tucker Carlson technique, by the way. Yeah. You mean to tell me that scientific achievements have finally gotten to a point where this vaccine could be able to, I don't know, seriously prevent people from, I don't know, dying of COVID? Okay. It's like, wow, dude, you just fucking owned, lady. You literally just owned. That's what people always do. Mitch McConnell, go back to the first lady. Okay, I was peeing. I missed it. What is she?
Vaccine is not approved by the FDA. I don't know what's in that. Women are miscarrying. People are having their DNAs wiped out.
What? What do you mean, like completely wiped out?
Yeah, they're telling women that it's okay for you to get the vaccine.
What does it mean their DNA is wiped out?
Like their immunity is getting wiped
Because I was
out.
saying, like, COVID wiped out 600,000 DNAs.
Yes, of course, you know?
Actually, some people have died from the vaccine. Don't believe me, go to the media, go to the Google or...
Some people have died from COVID.
Yes.
So many more than from the vaccine.
One thing with me, I try not to argue facts.
Wait, what the fuck does that mean? He's just like, I try not to argue facts, dude. It's like, you know, I try to argue from a place of emotion. That's what I like to do.
I don't believe that suggesting strongly and coming out with mandates for vaccine is a way of medical intervention. This is not what I believe in.
That's a lot of quotes.
People from both sides of the issue came from far and wide to express their hate or love of vaccines.
I think you're killing people. Right? I think you're killing people.
Go get your vaccine!
Come over here, let me cough on you.
Oh, full of shit. You know, Ron DeSantis and Ted Cruz have both been vaccinated. Bullshit.
This is why I love doing interviews in New York. You're from Pennsylvania.
Yes, because we know it's coming to Pennsylvania.
How important is it like that to think ahead to protect something before it gets out of control?
It's everything. It's everything, because once it's gone out of control, you don't reel it in.
Right, like that's why it's important for everybody to get a vaccine, squash it before it gets out of control.
That's why what?
It's important that we take the vaccine, squash it,
Oh my
get
God,
herd
what side are you on? Are you nuts?
No, what were you talking
I'm
about?
not talking to you.
What were you talking about?
I am not for the vaccine. Are you out of your mind?
Well, you were just talking about getting ahead of it.
Getting ahead of the mandate.
The mandate is what's spreading.
Yes. We don't want the mandate to come to PA. We don't want to take the vaccine.
Oh.
Why should I?
You see why I'm confused.
It's like, why are you siding with COVID? In the battle against COVID, why are you siding with COVID? It's like, I'm on team COVID. I like it personally. My neighbor, she was a fucking cunt. She died. Guess what? I personally like that, okay? A lot of fucking dickheads have died because of COVID. Made the neighborhood a lot nicer. I'm siding with COVID. I hated that bitch, Karen, you know? She kept telling me to trim my hedges. Guess what, bitch? You're dead now. Because of COVID.
Though. Clearly putting potentially harmful toxins into your body was something these anti-vax mandate health nuts were very concerned about.
Why do they always look like this, dude? Like, anti-vaxxers just like, they always look like
mandate
this.
Health nuts were very concerned about.
Like, well, what are you doing? Like, just there's something going on with like so many of these fucking conservatives. Conservatism is like meth, dude. Please do that accent more. What, you want me to do this accent more? This one? The pro-COVID Karen?
My name is Edwin de la Cruz, and I'm running for city council.
Running for New York office.
As a Republican.
As a Republican.
The science is still new. We still have question marks. We rush the science.
Bro, you always are going to have question marks because you're a fucking idiot. Here's the difference between me and these idiots. I know I'm an idiot, okay? These guys just don't know. That's the difference. I know I'm a fucking idiot, so I just, allow the people who are less dumb than me to make this decision and figure the fucking science out. You're never going to understand what's going on. You're never going to know. You don't know how a fucking car works, but you sit in one all goddamn day and drive around as you spread your fucking anti-vaxxer conspiracies. You know what I mean? It's so like anti-human to behave this way. I just don't understand how you can be like, we have a lot of questions. Bitch, of course you have a lot of questions. You don't know anything. You're a fucking idiot, dude. No shit, you have a lot of questions. So many things are questionable to you because you're a fucking dumbass. And so am I, okay? I'm a dumbass. So I will look to other less dumb people that have dedicated their entire lives to this and be like, they're probably, I also then will match their interests. Okay, if I'm going to be a little bit more skeptical, I'll match their personal interests under a capitalist organization of the economy to what they're saying and what they've done. Okay, that's it.
We were moving at warp speed.
Well, we moved at warp speed.
So Donald Trump rushed it.
Not correct.
Who rushed it?
Who rushed it?
Oh, he's recognizing he just got fucking put in a bind.
Can I ask, how about if we change places and I start attacking you?
You're the one who's running for public office.
The Republicans of New York.
Wow. Oh, trigger warning, Andrew Giuliani, Rudy Giuliani's son. I'm sorry, I didn't realize he was going to be in this video. Trigger warning.
We're clearly trying to move on from the past, and in some cases, forgetting it completely.
My name is Vish Burra, and I'm the vice president of the New York Young Republican Club. This is a protest against the anti-freedom mandates from a petty tyrant like Bill de Blasio.
Do you think this is something the founding fathers would support?
The founding fathers would support vaccine mandates.
Yeah.
No, I don't believe so.
Georgia.
They literally did. They did that. Okay, well,
Washington had a vaccine mandate.
Well, that's okay.
Oh,
that's okay.
Oh, he's a lower founding father.
I mean, I love the lore, but at the end of the day, we are the ones who have to deal with what is going on in America today.
What are you going to miss out on if this mandate prevents you?
Motherfucker said the lore, dude. Yeah. The lore of eradicating diseases so we could have a higher life expectancy so you could run your dumbass mouth like this, dude.
I just tried to get some Thai. I love Thai food. I just tried to get some Thai food around the corner. They told me I couldn't sit down and eat.
I can't go in a restaurant. I can't go to a music club.
50% more people who are not going to go out to eat.
How are they going to get food?
Exactly.
Yeah, right?
So maybe they'll go out of state and come back. Who knows?
If only like the city had a seamless way to get food to their door, fresh, direct way to get there,
Maybe that's it.
Their point is this mandate is a slippery slope that only leads to hyperbole.
So many don't get it. It's 1937, and never again is now. Do not
A person who clearly understands Nazism, I think.
comply to showing your papers. This isn't Nazi Germany.
Maybe you can help me out. I'm seeing signs that say vaccine mandates are fascism, and also signs that say vaccine mandates are communism. Which one is it?
It's both.
It's both. Those are diametrically opposed ideologies.
I don't think it's communism.
Based. Okay. That's okay, Jordan. I would never expect a prominent mainstream media figure to ever, draw that line. Like, usually people who understand history will still act like there is that's just the same. Fascism is communism. Remarkably surprising from Jordan Klepper.
It's more like a dictatorship. Like we're living in like a Nazi Germany again. The only thing that's missing is the camps and the gas.
That's what's happening right now?
Yes.
Because you can't go to a concert?
I can't go to a concert. I can't go to a gym.
Okay, I do agree with her on this. Yeah, she's right. Nazi Germany is when no gym. Oh, Jesus Christ. It's such psychos, dude. I'm sorry. I'm not going to do that, like, classic liberal thing of being like, oh my God, this is so anti-Semitic to make the comparison to the fucking Holocaust or whatever. Because, like, that person is so fucking delusional that if you're going to that person about, like, accurate takes on, you know, history, then I don't know what to tell you, okay? They're psychos. They're literally just, like, they're insane. So just laugh about it, okay?
I think that's what it was like in Nazi Germany. People
Yes, her shirt is on backwards, chat. That is true.
were bitching about not going to a gym.
Regardless of our differences, this was still New York. A melting pot crammed onto an island, then pushed into a subway car with a rat eating pizza. You're not left or right. You're a new Yorker, and we're in this together.
I mean, I've heard the we live in a society line a million times, and we're over it.
The we the people thing holds no sway for you.
No, we the people is...
Who are the people of the we the people that you are willing to support?
It's definitely not the illegal immigrants that are bringing COVID over.
Dog, you're not white, man. Like, please stop with this. You're not white, brother. Just because you're, like, the fucking president of the Republican Association of Dipshits doesn't change that reality, okay? Like, the we the people does not feature you, okay? This wasn't designed for you. You should be excited that, like, you are now included in that. Please, what the fuck?
Over our border right now, that's for sure. I do not believe that vaccine mandates are constitutionally supported.
Which is a bummer because the Supreme Court has upheld it many times.
It's not my court.
All right, well, enjoy. I hope you don't get sick.
Good luck to everyone out there, and may you get the Patsy you, our founding fathers, said you deserve to eat inside during a global pandemic.
Oh my God. Hey, it's not my Supreme Court. Yeah, if you don't like it, you can get out, right? Yeah, not his court, despite the permanent supermajority that conservatives have on that court. Laura Ingraham said the quiet thing out loud.
Do you want to see how the wealthy actually talk about the poor? Let's take a look at a conversation that occurred between John Taffer and Laura Ingraham.
Oh.
Keep in mind that John Taffer...
Oh, I talked about this before as well. I remember, guys, this was a big fucking thing that I mentioned.
Taffer is worth $14 million, and Laura Ingraham is worth $40 million.
What if we gave that additional unemployment benefits to employers to incentivize people to go to work?
Well, what if we just cut off the unemployment? I mean, hunger is a pretty powerful thing. I don't mean physical hunger, because people who truly are in need help. I'm talking about people who can work but refuse to work. John, I want to ask you, though, about this idea of work-life balance. Have we taken that a step too far when you think of, well, a lot of...
Like, you have all the work-life balance in the fucking world, and here you are saying that, like, workers should not have that. Like, they should be starving so they can be motivated to go back to fucking work. That shit is so... It's so fucking annoying, dude. It's so insanely fucking annoying. You go to work for like 2 hours a day. Your producers fucking give you talking points and you just like blurt them out and you're done. And then the rest of the day, you're doing whatever the fuck you want to do. And then you turn around and you're like, sorry, waiters should work 80 hours a week for like, you know, $2 an hour plus tip and get berated by assholes like me. And if they don't want to do that, then they should fucking die of hunger. What an incredible take, dude. Thank you, Laura Ingraham. And then motherfuckers turn around and listen to this person and love this person's attitude. And then they turn around and tell me like, oh my God, I can't believe you're rich too. You're rich too. Okay, dude, I'll just start advocating for whatever the fuck this is then. Clearly, it's very, very successful. More successful if I do say so myself.
A lot of the millennials talking about, oh, I need time for self-care. I don't know why I'm harping on that tonight, but the whole self-care movement is a little, I mean, my mother's not with us anymore, but she worked by the time she was 12 during the Depression. If she heard the self-care thing, I think her head would explode.
You know, I think that's right.
Old
I have
school.
a friend in the military who trains military.
Yeah, old school, old school. Yeah, they should just die of like syphilitic brain poison, like old school. That's old school, you know? We should just do that instead. Things were a lot better back then, dude. Like, oh, my grandmother, she would be so mad. It's like, dude, your grandmother got beaten every fucking night by your grandfather after he came back home from work and felt like the borscht was not up to his standards. Like, that's not a lifestyle that we should be going back to for anyone, you dumb fuck. And it's certainly not one that Laura Ingraham would ever fucking advocate for herself, okay? That's the reality. Whenever we, like, mythologize about the old days, like, it's like your grandmother wasn't a human in the eyes of many in society. In the eyes of people that have your kind of ideological predisposition, your grandmother was not a human. How do you like that? Was that good? No, I don't think so. Shut the fuck up.
Military dogs, Laura, and they only feed a military dog at night because a hungry dog is an obedient dog. Well,
that's the worst take, though, somehow, when John Taffer, fucking bar rescue Andy over here, turns around and fucking compares human beings to dogs, dude. That, like, you know, we should treat the working class, wage laborers, people that fucking work for $2 an hour plus tip, we should treat them like dogs. Perhaps that kind of fucking psychopathic attitude is some of the many reasons why waiters and waitresses and people that work in retail do not want to go back to fucking work and would rather take chances with other things. It's also partially because, like, a fuckload of them died of COVID. You know, when we were banging our fucking Teflons every night at 7, like, essential workers, like, they died. So they can't go back to work. There's that too. It's so fucking annoying, man. It is so disgusting. Like, the worst part is, if I talk about capital owners in this way, like hungry, parasitic vermin that want to exploit as many people as they possibly can and have ensured a system, and if I talked about them in similar terms, it's so outside of the scope of comprehension in our current comfortable Western neoliberal attitudes that, like, that is ridiculous. You're advocating for violence, but it's not violent when you literally say we should subjugate the masses and treat them like fucking dogs and ensure that they're starving so they will continue working as wage slaves, okay? That's not violent. That's not a violent fucking take at all, even though it is incredibly violent. It is just our attitudes. We're so used to living in this capitalist dogma where this kind of rhetoric is just like, yeah, that's what it is. I'm a dog. I'm a starving fucking dog. So that's what you sound like to me when you come into my chat and you're like, Hassan, fuck you, dude. You're part of the fucking ruling class. You're a ruling class, Andy, yourself. Like, fuck you. Oh, you say capitalism is bad, yet you benefit from it. It's like, yeah, dude, I benefit from it, dude, okay? You're basically telling me you are a hungry dog. So have fun with that. No, you're actually in the wrong here. Capitalism is very good. I am a hungry little dog. I'm a hungry little dog, and I'll keep barking. And maybe one day I'll bark so hard that they'll fucking let me also get a crumb of the fucking wealth that I've generated for my bosses, so that then I can turn around and continue that same fucking system of subjugation. Idiot. It's never happening. Okay? It's not happening for you. If it hasn't happened yet, it's not going to fucking happen.
If we're not causing people to be hungry to work, then we're providing them with all the meals they need sitting at home.
So let's break this down. First, Laura suggests that they should cut off unemployment altogether because being hungry is a good motivator. And even though she's quick to correct that she doesn't mean physical hunger, I don't believe that, and I'll get into why as we're breaking this down. Next, Laura brings up the idea of self-care in a mocking tone, and then lauds up this example of her mother who started working when she was 12. Because that's what they want. Trust me, the wealthy would be dying to employ your children if child labor were still legal. Not to mention that the idea that you should take care of yourself to them is laughable. You exist to work. Didn't you get the memo? And next, John Taffer talks about how when you train military dogs, you have to keep them physically hungry, and compares the poor to dogs who should be allowed to starve so that they'll go out and work.
It's also not even true. The rich know this. They can't keep the poor so hungry because a hungry dog will fucking bite inevitably, okay? So the rich already know this. That's why we have a welfare state, okay? Like wealthy libertarians behind closed doors call welfare a riot tax, okay? If you push a dog into a fucking corner where it starts recognizing that it's like being purposely starved, the dog is going to do something about it.
Which is why I don't believe Laura Ingraham's statement that she's not talking about physical hunger. And this whole conversation is predicated on this idea that Laura put out at the beginning of this clip saying that, well, you know, people who can work but don't. It's just this fake idea that people have been putting out there for decades that the majority of people on unemployment or on welfare are people that are completely capable of working but choose not to. Even though the standards for qualifying for unemployment are incredibly high. These wealthy people don't give a crap about you and would rather see you starve to death if you're not able to work toward their bottom line. We need to stop protecting them. We need to stop defending them. And we need to stop voting against our own best interests to further their...
Allah'a inanan bir malın peşine binlerce Amerikalı doluşmuş. Bir de sosyalizm falan diyor. Aynen kanka. 3 milyon dolar ev aldın sosyalizm kardeşim. Amına kodumun malı. Ben yazılımcı olarak haftada 80 saat çalışıp yıllık 100K doları götümü siktirtirken sen bana sosyalizm falan anlatacaksın. He. Here we have a fucking idiotic coder who's a Turk who's saying, I can't believe there are so many fucking idiotic Americans that trust this guy saying socialism and whatnot when he has a $3 million house. Yeah, totally socialism. I'm a coder and I work 80 hours a week and I make $100,000 and I get my ass fucked for that $100,000 a year. And now you're going to tell me about socialism. But let me answer you. Okay? Let me give you an answer. First I'm going to give it in Turkish. Furkancığım, götünü siken sistem hala götünü sikmeye devam ediyor. Benim sadece sana söylediğim şey o sistemi biraz düzeltmek. Bana niye bağırıyorsun geri zekalı? Sistemin götünü siktiğini görüyorsan niye bana bağırıyorsun salak herif? İkimiz de aynı şeyi görüyoruz. Aptal mısın? Evet aptalsın. Günün sonunda aptalsın. Çünkü diğer zenginler sana bu gerçeği görmeni istemiyorlar. Diğer zenginlerin en çok sevdiği şey bu işte. Gel bana bağır amına koyayım. Sana sistemin boktan olduğunu gösterdiğim için. Geri zekalı, manyak. Good job advocating for a system while recognizing that that fucking system fucks you and then yelling at me for telling you that the system fucks you instead of recognizing the conditions that you exist under and doing something about it. Congratulations, man. It's so fucking dumb to recognize the conditions of your subjugation and then direct your anger at someone who is trying to get other people to recognize that as well. It is the most dumb thing you can do. And guess what, dude? Capital owners love that. Oh, there is nothing better than that. That means that like capitalist dogma is like turnkey. You know, they've turned on the key and the machine keeps going. Now they don't even have to do that. They don't even have to fucking fight their own battles because other dumbass workers will fight it for them. Great, dude. I hope you're happy getting fucked in the ass. Okay? Calls all Americans dumb, proceeds to make a dumb American argument. Good one, Turkish chatter. Yeah. By the way, 100K in Turkey is actually incredible. $100,000 in Turkey is an incredible salary, which is probably why he's like, you know, delusional. Hey, bro, you respect Zerka and Has of Infrared. Not cool. They proved you're a shepherd for the establishment, spreading lies about Marxism. Enjoy your streamer mansion. Thanks, I will.
Their wealth.
Killed a manager in your head? Yeah, inside of us are 2 wolves and 2 managers. Justin, the House of Representatives narrowly approved a budget resolution providing a framework for the $3.5 trillion spending deal. We're going to talk about this in a second. I'm waiting for David Dayen to come back to me. The House of Representatives narrowly approved a budget resolution providing a framework for the $3.5 trillion spending deal. The 2020 212 party line vote came after division between moderate and progressive Democrats delayed action. Guess what, though? House Speaker Nancy Pelosi came in the fucking clutch. That's right, boys. That's right. She agreed to tuck the budget vote into a procedural measure and add a provision specifying that the House would vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill by September 27th. This process also sidestepped a separate vote on the budget resolution. Here is Mike Bonin. This is what he had to say. This is a really good video. I wanted to show this to you. I retweeted it last night. Here's another video about homelessness.
Share some of my lived experience. Most of you know, I think all of you know, I'm a recovering addict and alcoholic. I have not been shy. I don't share as openly or as frequently about is my experience being unhoused. Some of those nights, I slept in my car, and a few of those nights, when my car was in the shop, I slept on the beach. I can't tell you how much turmoil there is in your heart when the sun is setting and you don't know where you can sleep. I can't adequately express the combination of shame and frustration and anger and desperation and confusion you feel in that moment. Imagine you're sitting there all day, your face is sunburned, and you are dead dog tired. You haven't had a moment to relax and to drop your guard and just to exhale. We are all fragile. We are all breakable and often break, and that we all stumble and fall down, and that we often need somebody to help us up. Yes, we have created more housing units and created more shelter beds and more interventions than ever before. But despite all that, we still do not have enough units or enough beds. And it has not been easy. Hell, I haven't got just protests, I've got lawsuits and appeals that have tried to stop or slow down everything I've tried to do. I've gotten calls from
people in my fucking replies were shitting on him, saying like he destroyed Airbnb for my Airbnb owning family. Like he's a piece of shit, and now like the entire neighborhood's overtaken by fucking crackheads. It's like, dude, you're gonna be more mad at like your family not making wise investment choices and contributing to the fucking explosion in the housing market in Los Angeles, which is already a fucking incredibly expensive housing market to begin with, and like ruin opportunities for so many other people that already have a fucking job but simply are being priced out of the market as a consequence of your fucking parents like buying multiple properties and turning them into fucking Airbnbs. You're more upset about like this guy preventing that from further destroying the housing market. Like, what a fucking insane, idiotic take.
millionaires. I've gotten attacks from the police union. I've had people say, I hope your family suffers. You know what? It's okay. Because today, when I go home,
this man is flexing, by the way.
I know where I can sleep.
Flex.
I don't have that feeling of not knowing. When I go home,
he's like, whatever, bitch, I used to be homeless, and guess what? I'm not anymore, so literally doesn't matter what you say, because I got a roof over my head.
No matter what else, I know where I can sleep. And everybody in Los Angeles deserves to know that.
Anyway, the thing people need to start doing is start considering housing like buying a car. The price you paid is the highest it will ever be worth. The system is so fucking broken. We're told housing is an investment because people have no way whatsoever of participating in other investment vehicles. I mean, fuck investment vehicles, dude. The system is broken because we don't have adequate fucking elderly care, okay? That's why the system is fucking broken. Like, if there was better social security, if there was a fucking fatter, more robust social safety net for those who fucking retire, who could live comfortably, okay? Then they wouldn't be fucking freaking out over the reality that, like, their nest egg, in some instances, it literally is their nest egg, is still a incredibly parasitic fucking denial of resources that are necessary for human life to thrive and to continue, i.e. landlording, i.e. residential real estate. That is a massive problem as well. That's the other part of the problem. The concept of equity from buying a house is a joke. Many sources prove that it's actually just a money pit. I mean, no, it's a... Housing is still, well, maybe not as much anymore, but like even with like government measures and whatnot, housing is still one of the like fundamental ways that you can create intergenerational wealth. Like it's basically part of the fucking way that so many people have been able to do that for their next generation. Sturgis ended 9 days ago. Today, 2 of the 3 fastest growing counties in the United States for COVID cases are Meade County and Sturgis, and Lawrence County, which is next door. Nice, dude. 229% growth in hospitalizations. I wonder where the fuck that's coming from. 38% fully vaccinated, 37% fully vaccinated. Literally happened last year, too. It's even worse for people who come here on student visa. You have to build your wealth up to getting a house, usually at lower wages than your American counterparts, and always insecure about the visa status. The Congressional Progressive Caucus is saying that they will only vote for the infrastructure bill after passing the reconciliation bill, which is fucking awesome, dude. That's what I'm talking about, baby. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about. Listen, a lot of people got mad at me and still apparently have a lot of anger towards me for saying, you know, the forced to vote stuff was frivolous, was not, I mean, I think, like, you know, it was basically created by fucking podcasters, you know what I mean? And it wasn't the best thing to do. Even though there are people who I respect and I'm friends with that were a part of that movement, a part of that momentum. But ultimately they gambled on working with Nancy Pelosi, and their gamble fucking worked out so far. I don't trust Nancy Pelosi I could trust Nancy Pelosi as far as I could throw her. And I mean, I don't know, I could probably throw her like decently far, but not super far. Right? So far, so good. So far, so good, folks. So, all right. Let's get to it. Let's just talk about it a little bit. I'll briefly introduce it. Nancy seems the size of my gram and she only weighs 80 pounds. Yeah, I know. It's, yes, Nancy Pelosi is very skinny. Not very big, not very thick. Let me see. What else was I going to show you guys? Oh, I was going to show you guys this. Yesterday, something profoundly interesting happened. And that was the Justice Democrats got together with like the DCCC and like centrist, horrible fucking organizations like Third Way, and basically started bullying 9 conservative holdouts. Here is an ad that the Justice Democrats put out calling the holdouts out.
Joe Biden promised he would build back better, and his infrastructure plan does exactly that. Fixing our roads and bridges, making historic investments in clean energy, education, and broadband, expanding Medicare and childcare. But these 9 conservative Democrats are sabotaging Biden's agenda because it would make billionaires.
That's what I'm talking about, dude. Look at that. Look at that. Just fucking ripperoni, dude. Absolutely ripperoni. All of them.
Because it would make billionaires and corporations pay their fair share. Tell Representative Gottheimer, stop obstructing President Biden and start working for the American people.
So they started calling these fuckers out. Who was it Gottheimer that was on? Hold on. Trying to defend the SALT deductions and then got absolutely fucking owned in the most pathetic way possible. Isn't Manchin and Sinema the ones we should worry about? Okay, Kyrsten Sinema is still a relatively new congressperson, right? She fucking facilitated the bipartisan infrastructure bill. She's not going to fucking nuke her own bill. And I don't know about Joe Manchin, but we'll see. Senator, congressperson still means a senator can be a congressperson. Congress is both the Senate and the House of Representatives. Anyway, so... But thank you. Oh, the CNBC Gottheimer clip. Here it is. Watch Gottheimer get fucking destroyed about the SALT deduction, which is a tax cut for the wealthy.
What does the final SALT compromise look like for you and your colleagues, Swazi, and the other guys that think it's really important to change that? Would you accept a higher cap? Is that what it's going to be? Do you think?
You know, my position on that remains unchanged. We've talked about here before. Full reinstatement of the state and local tax deduction. There's no reason why we should be paying taxes twice. And this is a middle class issue here in northern New Jersey. And when we've talked about
it's not
Bergen County, the median property tax is over $15,000. So people's taxes went up in 2017 when they gutted SALT. Now it's time to reinstate it and get people actually tax relief back here and get them tax cuts back here. You're talking about, a teacher and a firefighter.
He's not talking about a teacher and a firefighter. He's fucking lying. He's talking about rich people living in Bergen County. Okay. That's what he's talking about. Salt deductions are helpful to the top 10 to 20% of wealth.
Who really will get relief when this gets done, and a third of New Jersey will benefit from it. So that's my fight on the reconciliation package, and we're going to focus on it, and we'll get that done too.
Well, you all constantly say you don't like higher taxes in general on anything, and that whole $3.5 trillion boondoggle, you're going to be voting for, taxes out the wazoo, Josh, and I just don't see how
we haven't actually seen. Let's look at the total impact.
I like that this guy's take is like, well, what about the fucking infrastructure bill that's gonna have a lot of taxes for the wealthy? Like, that's the problem there, dude. Come on, brother. What the fuck?
I'm gonna focus.
And then he tries to be like, oh, well, that's not true. We won't know. Also, how are you? Democrat, by the way, who's like, I don't know about fucking increasing taxes. Like, dude, you're such a piece of shit, dude. What the fuck is wrong with you?
On one thing, the total impact on my district.
On Kelly, and
I'm making sure that Kelly is okay.
Yeah, no, there's some. I just think it's such
we'll look
bad
at that. We've got to
messaging.
look at that when the legislation's written. There's no bill yet.
You what?
So when the bill is written, we'll look at it.
I got to draw you out.
I think salt is a problem. You can't be for salt, but you're helping the wealthy. I'm sorry. There are a few teachers in town. They're married to people on Wall Street for the most part. I don't think it's helping a lot of the middle class.
I'll introduce.
Whoa, that is salty, dude. That's salty. What the fuck? She said, I think there might be some teachers in town that are married to Wall Street brokers, dude. That's awesome. That was pretty good. That was some fucking Sigma Grindstay shit right there, dude. She held frame like a motherfucker.
You to a lot of folks that I'm hearing from who are real middle class folks who need help.
Josh loves coming on in Faces, and we love having you, Josh.
Jesus Christ. Rundown Southern California motels are being converted to permanent homeless housing. That's awesome. Actually, awesome idea. Great. Hopefully, it's not going to be operated like a homeless shelter, but instead like actual permanent housing, because that's a big distinction. It's a big difference. What is the argument against homeless shelters? My dad always uses that as housing they can't go to, but I never know how to respond. There are many different problems with homeless shelters. One, they're like super fucking underfunded. Two, they're not permanent shelter. So, and lastly, they're conditional shelters. So a lot of homeless people don't want to fucking live in shelters. One, especially if you're a homeless woman, there's like a lot of threats to your safety. There's like sexual assault and things like that happen in homeless shelters quite frequently. It's shared housing that you're sharing, like occupying space with like a bunch of other people. And more importantly, or rather most importantly, there are conditions to it. Like you can't do drugs. And for someone who's like from the outside looking in, you're like, well, what the fuck? Then yeah, all right, well, that's a great idea. Like, yeah, they drug test you. And if you can't fucking do drugs, then a lot of people are like, yeah, I'd rather live in the street and keep doing drugs. The point is, it's safer than the streets, you dumb fuck. Okay, that's literally not true. I'm giving you the reason why. Okay? Yeah, they don't allow pets. They don't allow how many of your belongings you can bring, and also they don't let you do drugs or alcohol in a lot of these places. There's crime that runs rampant. And if you are what? Literally false source was in one? What do you mean literally false? Am I wrong about... I'm not wrong at all. Anyway, the problem is, like, there's a degree of autonomy that you give up in an effort to be in like a fucking indoor camp, okay? Alongside people that you don't know, where there could be fucking crime and you can't even do like the shit that you want to do, right? Withdrawals can literally fucking kill you. Withdrawals can fucking kill you. The way to the resheltering and permanent shelter goal for the people that are homeless already revolves around like a long amount of fucking commitment, dedication, and guiding people to want to move into permanent shelter rather than ripping them off the streets, criminalizing homelessness, and then fucking saying like, all right, go live in the shelter now and fucking die. Okay? That's a major problem. That's why a lot of people don't want to fucking do it. A lot of people would rather live in the goddamn street than in a fucking homeless shelter. Like, think about that. I know you're not a big Reddit guy, but I think this was the best explanation of shelters from a homeless person. r/vagabond. According to a hobo, the problem with the homeless shelter system in America and why it's not being fixed according to a hobo. Let's start with the obvious. The homeless shelter system is broken. Just go down to your local mission or shelter. Just ask any vagabond on this forum. It's obvious. Most shelters are a shit show. They're certainly not a viable solution to the problem of modern homelessness. As a vagabond of 18 years, oh, dude, this is the crustiest of anarchists writing this. Okay, I've been to hundreds of homeless shelters across America. As a volunteer and a founder of a nonprofit group of homeless volunteers, I've volunteered at hundreds more. Don't get me started with how bad some of these places are. Allow me to sum up some of my experiences and shed some insight as to what you typically expect at your local shelters. Bed bugs, lice, scabies, athlete's foot, attempted murders, actual fucking murders, drug overdoses, whatever drug you want, getting all your shit stolen, listening to some evangelical nutscape preachers spew brim and firestone from the book of Revelations, listening to some tweaked out and unmedicated severe schizophrenic trying to fight the preacher, or fighting a telephone pole while also screaming about revelations, and lots of offers to have your dick or clit sucked for $50 or $20 rock. Oh, I could go on, including more greatest hits such as getting beat up from someone released from prison the day before. Wait, is that guy trying to piss on my pit bull mix? Do not look at a single person in the eye, including staff. Eyes down, eyes down, eyes down. Is this soup or is this goop? Maybe cream soup or something. Wait, this soup is made out of plasma. What actual scientific element dies in this goop to fall under? Okay, I'll stop. You get it. You wouldn't want to send your worst enemy to most shelters. Trust me, I have. It's a great way to get rid of lame-ass oogles and trust fund scumfucks from blowing up our jungles and hop-outs. Just send them to the Union Gospel Mission over on 12th Street at 5 p.m. They may never come back. I've personally had jail experiences that were by far safer and more tolerable than many of the shelters I've been to. Not all, but some, maybe even most. I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not trying to bash the system out of mere spite. It is bad. So before I get more serious and factual about the homelessness shelter system in America, everyone repeat after me. Shelters are a shit show. But why are they a shit show? To answer that question, we have to travel back in time and educate ourselves on how the shelter system began in America. Jesus Christ. Okay, this guy's definitely a leftist. Holy shit. Are we just going to read this entire thing for him to basically say what I summarized already, which is that, like, they're unsafe, they're not meant as permanent housing, and permanent housing is what, like, is precisely needed alongside medical care, attention, therapy, mental health treatment, and overall an effort to personally make people want to get off of the drugs and get permanent job opportunities on top of that through training programs. You hit your reading limit? Yes. Wait, is there a TLDR in the end? Nope, he did not write a TL. Oh, TLDR. Modern homeless shelter system was designed in the early 1900s for able-bodied and stable-minded working-class males. It was not designed for schizophrenic PTSD tweakers pregnant with a baby and shitting in the water fountains. If you're from a first world foreign country looking at the USA as a first world foreign country, you may be like, well, how the fuck do you guys have so many homeless mentally ill people and why aren't they being cared for? Don't want to dive into that nitty gritty, huh? No, it's not going to fucking say anything counter to my point of view. My two best answers to that. The USA, once upon a fucking time before Reagan the Great, we had asylum and hospitals and state-run facilities to house mentally homeless people and veterans. They were all shut down more than a quarter of a century ago, and everyone that was in them was basically dropped out into the streets. Those places were mostly shit shows as well, as they basically experimented on them with all sorts of fucked up pills and mental toxins. It is true. Asylums are also fucking incredibly awful. They basically just gave them lithium and let them drool down the hallway into oblivion for several hours. Many of them were places nightmares are made out of, as well as several horror movies. Even nursing homes in America are, by far, something to be embarrassed and ashamed about. More than 3/4 of the staff are underqualified and underpaid for the jobs they're supposed to do, and half-assed even don't do those jobs as well. If we invested more in our annual spending towards healthcare towards the mentally, physically disabled and elderly people in this country, we could have hospitals, housing systems that are much more accommodating, more modern, with more qualified staff and professional medical care. But we don't put that money there. We spend 80% on defense and can't shit a single more percent towards healthcare for the elderly and disabled. Yes, the two fundamentally flawed systems are also simultaneously the intersection of marginalization for homeless people. Okay? The healthcare system and the housing system. Both are incredibly profitable if you're an executive, and incredibly awful if you are, you know, at the precipice of getting priced out of a housing market. You become homeless, either due to mental health deterioration or due to being priced out of the fucking housing market. And I'm using like incredibly reductive terms here. Okay? And then ultimately, that makes it harder for you to find permanent shelter. And it gives you so much more trauma as a consequence of not having a permanent shelter. It's a never-ending spiral of despair and death. Okay? It's not profitable to help the homeless people. It's actually a constant reminder for those who should work as hard as they can to never get to that condition. Because if you look at the fucking dudes that are living in tent cities next door on the street and they're eating trash, you're like, well, I don't want to be like that. So I will shut the fuck up and keep listening to my boss scream at me every fucking day. So not only is it not profitable to help homeless people, it's also kind of profitable to keep people in the system of subjugation and use homeless people as an example of what will happen to you if you don't suck it the fuck up and engage in the wage slavery that is incredibly alienating for you. What about the hobos that throw trash off the bridge on the 110 and almost hit my brand new Porsche? What? If you don't want them to do shit like that, then get them healthcare and fucking housing. There you go. What's the angle for preventing drugs from entering into affordable housing where kids might live near? I just know this will be an argument and need a counter. What? Preventing drugs from entering into affordable housing where kids might live near? I don't know. But what I do know is, you know, kids live near drugs already, so... All right, let's see what the
County
Los
converting a
Angeles is
motel
doing.
into housing for the homeless. Now, it's not a shelter, but a place where dozens can have a key to their own home. NBC4's Vicky Vargas explains.
It's called permanent supportive housing because it's supposed to be both of those things, permanent for those who move in and supportive as well. Charles Wright jokes he's never lived in a place with 2 closets. Now he has that and more. But it comes after a long bout of homelessness.
I was living out of my car for period of time.
Wright moved into Buena Esperanza 2 weeks ago, one of 69 residents soon to call this Anaheim address home. It was a rundown econo lodge, converted and remodeled to become a place for veterans, the formerly homeless, and those struggling with mental illness.
This is not a shelter. This is permanent housing. So these individuals can stay here.
The difference between shelter and permanent housing is that when you're in permanent housing, it's your fucking house. Okay? This is the most effective. Capitalists hate this. The single most effective way of deleting homelessness is called permanent shelter. Okay? That's what it is. Doctors hate them. Like, that's literally it. Okay? That's it. Put them in houses. Now, the process of putting people in permanent housing is also a difficult one. You would be very shocked, maybe, to find out that, like, depending on what tier of homelessness you are at, and I feel like it's like such dehumanizing terms to use it to like try to contextualize this for those who are just very far removed from understanding it. There are people who are just not going to want to fucking move. You have to let people have their dogs and their belongings in that permanent housing as well.
Here for as long as they wish to. Residents pay 1/3 of their income towards rent, which averages about $300. The rest comes from housing vouchers. But to get here took a village of investors. The $25 million project came about from county, city, and businesses.
It's literally so fucking cheap, dude. $25 million to provide permanent housing for hundreds of people. It's literally nothing. Okay? In the grand scheme of things, $25 million is not even a drop in the fucking bucket, dude. Are you kidding me? Holy fuck. Mind-boggling to me.
Like Disneyland.
The evidence shows
25 million is nothing for you, lol. Are you fucking so dumb that you've like completely... Are you completely fucking misunderstanding my point? $25 million is significantly more than anything I've ever fucking made or even will make, okay? You dumb fuck. I'm talking about in the grand scheme of things as far as like the local budgets we have. Okay? Municipality budgets. Especially in a fucking place, especially in one of the largest economies on the planet. California alone is like the 14th largest economy. You understand that, right? $25 million is nothing. We have a $55 billion budget surplus this fucking year. It's drip, motherfucker. It's literally just like a blip, just a little drop in the bucket.
Knows that once people are housed like this with sustainable supportive services wrapped around them, the vast majority, more than 90% of these folks will never go back to homelessness again.
This former Marine says he felt that sense of home soon after he moved in and needed an on-site counselor to help him through a breakdown.
We talked and talked, and she got me out of it. She made me laugh. She made me smile, and I felt a whole lot better when I walked out.
According to the most recent point-in-time survey, there has been an increase of 43%.
If it's so little, why haven't they done it? Serious question. I just already mentioned it. It's not profitable to house the houseless. It's actually better for capital owners to fucking use the homeless people as a further reminder for the working class that, like, that is what'll happen to you if you don't shut the fuck up and come to work every goddamn day.
In Orange County's homeless population over just 2 years. Charles Wright vows never to be one of those statistics again.
This is my home. This is where I feel comfortable at.
Organizers say the need is obvious. They have had about twice as many applicants as they have rooms here. In Anaheim, Vicki Vargas, NBC4 News.
Cali had a $75 billion surplus on the last fiscal year. Oh, I thought it was 55. I was wrong. It was $75 billion. Correction. Okay. Oh, David is here. He's calling. Hold on. I'm going to fucking pick up the phone. Hold on. Hey, David, what's going on? You know, you take care of the kids. How about that? I'm going to leave you with them for a brief moment.
No, please don't do that.
No, I'm doing that already. Folks.
Yo.
Here is David Dayen at the American Prospect. He's awesome. He's been on the show before. He's going to teach you guys all about Nancy Pelosi and how she's a girl boss, slay queen, infrastructure deliverer. Or maybe he's going to say that that's not the case and that she's going to, you know, pull the rug from under all of us when push comes to shove. I don't know, but
I'm going to talk about Los Angeles real estate right now.
Oh, you want to talk about? Yeah, no, go ahead. That's totally fine. That's totally fine. I love that. I have been talking about that already.
A 2-bedroom, 1 bath. Or I don't know what the specs are, but it's very pricey. It's out of whack with what you might expect elsewhere in the country. And yes, is there a lot of marble in Hassan's new house? Yes. Is there granite? Probably. Is there?
There is none of those, for the record. I don't know why you're saying this, but
I thought you left. I thought you left me here.
No, I'm still here. Hold on. I'm sizing your camera right now. Okay, now I'm gone. You can go ahead. You can tell them all about how expensive my house is and how much of a hypocrite I am.
I don't want to do that. Son's a nice guy, but I do hope and expect to get a full crib style tour when it is all ready for move-in. You know, want to look up the MLS listing on that one. We've had a group of 10 conservative Democrats in the House threaten to derail the process if it didn't go in the particular way that they wanted. Ultimately, they relented on that, and just I think about an hour ago, we had passage of the budget resolution, which keeps everything on track to pass these 2 bills. So we have infrastructure, a bipartisan bill that's about $500 billion in new spending, and then we have this budget, which includes $3.5 trillion, or up to $3.5 trillion, in public investments. And the goal is to pass both of these, and nobody trusts each other. So it's kind of like the end scene in Reservoir Dogs where everyone has the gun cocked on each other, and there's sort of a gentleman's agreement that nobody will shoot. There's no trust between progressives and the conservative wing of the caucus, corporate wing of the caucus. And each side has been scheming to get leverage over the other so that everything passes in the ways that they exactly want. It's simply true that there are more progressives, and not even just progressives, but more members of the House Democratic Caucus who are willing to, who distrust and are willing to blow up this bill or this agenda if it doesn't have their particular needs. Then there are conservative members, which number about 10.
I thought it was 9.
Well, Stephanie Murphy joined at the last minute, so it's actually 10. But there are simply more. The point, Hassan, is that there are just more Democrats who want to go forward with the process that Biden and Pelosi and Schumer have set out, and that process is the Senate passes the bipartisan bill, they pass the budget resolution, which has the reconciliation bill, and then they send everything to the House, and then the House finishes that off. And that was sort of the plan. And then these initially was 9 and then became 10 on Monday. Conservative Dems said, no, that's not what we want. We want to have a vote on the full infrastructure bill first, and then we'll deal with the budget resolution. Now, they gave no policy reason for this. There isn't, there was this claim like we can't waste time and hold up all of this great infrastructure spending that we're going to have, which is bunk. There's under current rules of appropriations, you can't even spend any of this money until October 1st. So because it's tied to particular fiscal years. So it's just nonsense to say that we have to hurry up and do this. Their real reason is they want leverage over the process. They don't want certain tax increases on the wealthy and on corporations. They want a tax cut for wealthy people in the form of repealing the cap on the state and local tax deduction, which is a big imperative for people like Josh Gottheimer, who's sort of the ringleader of this. He's from a bedroom community in New Jersey, which has a lot of wealthy folks in it, and he wants them to be able to maximize their state and local tax deduction.
Yeah, he has. He's talked to some teachers who happen to be married to Wall Street bankers, according to the Squawk, who absolutely promptly owned him. We actually were watching that video of him like talking about how firefighters are paying $15,000 in property taxes, and it's actually the teachers and not necessarily the top 20% of wealth that will be getting the lion's share of tax deduction, tax cuts, basically.
Look, man,
under his
when you're a homeowner, you'll see the yoke of the tax authorities come down on your head, and you'll wish that you had that kind of benefit. But
the funny part about it is, like, not to bring it back to myself, but like I'm a massive advocate for decreasing my property values all the way to nothing. I don't give a shit. I want to decommodify housing in its entirety. So that's something that people don't understand. We can talk about that though, but for the time being,
no. Let me continue with this. So anyway, point being, they wanted to pass this bipartisan bill to sort of orphan the reconciliation bill so that they could make demands on it, and up to and including a demand not to pass it at all. Right? The having out there something that they want to pass in the infrastructure bill makes it harder for them to dictate terms on the reconciliation bill. So their whole thinking was, if we delink these two, then we can dominate by just saying this is what we want and just force progressives in line. And progressives have said, no, we're not going to pass this infrastructure bill unless you give us the reconciliation bill. So Nancy Pelosi, like her or hate her, she knows how to count, right? I mean, she knows how to get to the number of votes she needs to pass things, and she knows what path is the most optimal path to get there, right? And she was looking at these two sides. And on one side, there were 9 or 10 conservative members saying, we're going to hold out. And she can only spare 3 votes, right? So, which means she has to flip 7 or 6 of them at some point. And then she's looking at the other side of progressives, where you probably have 60 or 70 or maybe a lot more members.
Wasn't it originally 48 of the Progressive Caucus? I believe they came out.
Yeah, but I don't think it's limited to progressives.
I agree. I agree with you.
Yeah, I committee chairs that want a piece of this bill, members who have long-standing priorities that are in that reconciliation package and don't want to screw that up. I'd say it could be as much as 100 members that would not vote for the infrastructure bill and give up their leverage. So Pelosi, just by her actions, knows the numbers. And she knows, and I know that they were communicated to her, not just in an abstract way, but in a real way. And so she knew that the way I'm going to get this done is I'm going to have to roll over these 10 conservative Dems. And so she tried to just sort of dismiss them. She tried, she used the head of the DCCC, which is the campaign funding arm of the House, to say, if you vote this way, we're going to cut you off from all your donations in 2022. Apparently, there were threats to, we have a redistricting year coming up, so all the districts change. And there was a threat to ruin somebody's district, to
that was awesome.
Knock out their turf. There was a threat to have the relative of one of these members be fired from their White House job. I mean, there were a lot of threats going around. There was a very contentious meeting where there was more pressure placed on these conservative members. I should say who they are, right? I mean, so we have Gottheimer. We have a few South Texas members, Vicente Gonzalez, Henry Cuellar, who almost lost his primary to a progressive last
Jessica
year,
Cisneros,
2 years ago.
who interned with him, and who, of course, girl boss slay queen Nancy Pelosi did not want a 27-year-old progressive to occupy the seat of the most conservative Democrat in Congress, and actually agitated for Cuellar. Who then
she came down. She came down to Laredo and campaigned for him, and or raised money, I believe. Maybe not campaign, but raised money certainly. And she's probably regretting that decision because Cuellar gave her a lot of headaches today. So Cuellar, Gonzalez, and Filemon Vela were the others. So that's 4, right? Stephanie Murphy, I mentioned, who came in late. That's 5. Kurt Schrader, who's a very conservative Democrat from the Oregon Central Coast, who's probably going to vote against the whole bill because he's deficit obsessed. Jared Golden, who's in a swing seat in Maine. So what's that, 7? I'm trying to remember the others. Jim Costa, who's in the Central Valley here in California, in a pretty blue seat, by the way. Like this isn't just sort of conservative Democrats in swing seats. Some of these guys are in, Cuellar's seat is pretty safe for Democrats, for example. Carolyn Boudreaux, who is in a very tough swing seat in Georgia, where she might lose through redistricting. She might just have her seat vanish. And there's one more, and I can't think of the other one. But anyway, so that's who we're talking about. So they were kind of beaten up by the leadership. They said they were holding strong. We heard reports on Sunday that they were kind of wavering, but they held strong through Monday. But they changed what they wanted, right? So you could see them bargaining at some point to try to find a way out of this. Because initially, what did they say? They said, we want to vote on the infrastructure bill, so that goes to the president's desk before we would entertain anything on the budget resolution, right? Well, then it changed. Then they said, well, we just want a date where we know we're going to get that vote, a date certain on the infrastructure bill. And in exchange for that, we'll pass the budget resolution. So you know, the goalpost moved here. And at first, they agreed to do this in somewhat of a non-binding way. Then they got a bit stronger language in it in the final version. But that doesn't really tell the whole story, because Pelosi has a ton of ways to maintain this sort of two-track approach, even with this deadline. So there is now sort of a deadline where it says in the legislation that just passed like an hour ago, it says there has to be a vote on the infrastructure bill by September 27th. Like, that's the date certain. However, Democrats, progressive Democrats could simply vote down that infrastructure bill if they decide that reconciliation isn't moving in the direction they want. And indeed, Pramila Jayapal reiterated that that's exactly what they would do if the reconciliation bill didn't pass first. Number two, they could slightly change the language of the infrastructure bill, and any change would require a conference with the Senate to reconcile the two different bills, right? And so that would, again, put us into a negotiation period. The third thing that Pelosi can do, and I know this gets really complicated, but I'm trying to make a larger point. Pelosi, just because a bill passes both houses of Congress does not mean that it automatically goes to the president. Pelosi has to take a step to send that on to the desk of the president, which means that even if the bill's passed both houses, she could hold on to it until the reconciliation bill passed. That is completely legal under the rules of the House.
Do you believe that she would ever do that, though?
She did it just recently on impeachment. She held back the articles of impeachment from going from the House to the Senate for several days until she got some concessions out of how they were going to do the structure in the Senate.
Yeah,
so
but that's a little different, though. That like doesn't impact
a
capital.
Little different. It's a little different, but here's the larger point is there are a lot of ways that this deadline isn't really a deadline. And the second part of that is that I think that at some level, the leadership is happy to have a deadline. That means that now, instead of this amorphous, like, hey, come up with a reconciliation bill whenever you get to it, they can say, we have a timeline. We have a month to put together this bill, and you all have to, resolve your differences, because on September 27th, we're going in the House with this bill, or else we're getting nothing. So, there are a lot of ways in which this thing still looks the same way that it did yesterday.
So what are some of the immediate hurdles? Do you think that this will be used as an opportunity by the Democratic Party that always resorts back to the most conservative position? That I foresee this going smoothly in the least likely circumstance where Bernie Sanders basically writes the entire Bernie Sanders, along with other progressive members, writes the spending on this bill, and then the progressive caucus is able to bully everyone into voting for the budget reconciliation first, including Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin and Maggie Hassan and all of the other moderate senators out there. It's infrastructure, so obviously, or it's human infrastructure plus infrastructure. So obviously that's a little bit more likely than full-blown healthcare, even though healthcare is featured in this, as we know, or is slated to be featured in this, because right now there's nothing really featured in this. We just have an outline, right?
Well, here's the problem, right, Hassan, is that this was all a fight over the procedure, over the process of getting to this $3.5 trillion bill. Not a single policy within this bill has been set in stone. It's just there's a menu of certain things, but there are no details on exactly what's going to end up in here. And there is a difference of opinion among the caucus. Sinema reiterated yesterday, I don't agree with the top line number, although she's not giving any details either. Like, what do you actually disagree with, right? But she's saying, I don't want 3.5 trillion. Manchin has said that. Several members of the House have said that. On the other side, progressives have said 3.5 trillion was actually the compromise number, that we wanted a $6 trillion bill. That's what Bernie Sanders put out originally. And we compromised down to 3.5 trillion. So all of these differences of opinions still exist. And now there's only a month to actually resolve them. And not just the top line numbers, which seems like maybe the easiest part of this. Okay, maybe it's 3.4 instead of 3.5 or whatever, but all the details, right? What, if you're going to cut something, what gets cut? Is it universal pre-K? Is it free community college? Is it money for childcare so people can afford childcare? Is it money for home and community-based services so elderly people have the ability to get help and at the end of their life? Is it the Medicare changes to add dental, vision, and hearing? Is it, what is it, right? So they have to figure out exactly what those all look like. And they have to figure out the whole tax side, right? Which is, how are we going to offset this? Biden has said he wants it all paid for. Pelosi has said that at times, but at other times they've said maybe it won't all be paid for. There's a concession here that you can pay for this with long-term economic growth, which means you just don't pay for it. And there's a good argument for that, right? If you're improving the education and improving the productivity through infrastructure spending, that it does pay for itself. It's an investment, and investments do pay off.
Exactly.
But what taxes are you going to do, right? And if you're not interested in taxes, are you willing to cut the prices that Medicare pays for prescription drugs to the degree to offset, to generate some budget savings? A lot of the members on the conservative side have had problems with various tax parts, whether it's increasing individual tax rates, increasing the corporate tax rate, having a minimum corporate tax so that any company that says in earnings statements that they made X amount of profit should pay a percentage of that profit and eliminate the loopholes, that there's a minimum tax that they pay. Is there going to be the kind of changes to estate taxes and inheritance taxes and capital gains taxes? Are they going to get rid of the loophole on hedge funds so that they show their income as capital gains and save a lot of money? All of these things have to be figured out, and they have a month. They have a month now to do it. So this is going to be really, really difficult, and there really is a non-zero chance that none of it gets done. I think the chance of, if I would rank them all, the chances go like something gets done, right, where both things pass. The second chance would be nothing gets done, neither things pass. Way below that is that only the infrastructure bill passes, because I just don't see that that's going to happen. I think this is an all or nothing kind of game. And there's a lot of pressure on the Democratic Party to deliver this for their constituents. This is what they ran on. This is what they said they were going to do. They believe that their political future is tied to it. They think that they can't win in 2022 without delivering something for the public that's tangible. And in the darker moments, they probably think, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, this is it. I think that this is, especially with like the Afghan withdrawal and all this other stuff with Joe Biden's like approval rating that was like record high, going down a little bit with the media constantly battering him. If the Democrats don't get this done, they, it's over. It's a wrap for their 2022 chances.
And I think they know that their 2022 chances are pretty dim anyway, right? With redistricting and what normally happens in a midterm, A lot of the older members that have, and Pelosi is right in with this, who have been around for a long time, who've wanted to do a lot of these kinds of things like paid family leave and expanding the child tax credit and all the education stuff and the healthcare stuff. They've wanted to do them for decades. They know this is it. This is like the last chance that they're going to have. There's probably not going to be a chance to do this after 2022. And so that creates a lot of pressure. And the fact that you need everyone to do this. Every Democratic senator has to agree, and virtually every Democratic House member has to agree to get the majority vote. They have 3 votes to spare in the House of Representatives. So this is the kind of thing where they all jump together or they all fall together. So I think that's that dynamic creates a situation where there's just a lot of momentum to pass something. And if you give some sort of face-saving measure to the conservatives, to Manchin, to Sinema, to Gottheimer, that will get it done. But that doesn't, just because there's that kind of pressure doesn't mean that this is a done deal.
So who do you think are the most likely spoilers here? And what are the immediate poison pills, for example?
Well, so obviously now we have 10 members in the House who have outed themselves as not as interested in the reconciliation bill as they are in the one in the infrastructure bill. And as I said, those members, the whole state and local tax deduction thing, I think could be a poison pill, because that's going to cost a lot of money, hundreds of billions of dollars. And the whole point is we have this level of spending and we want to offset it with tax changes. But that tax change would actually cost a lot of money. And so that would frustrate the ability to have this thing balance, which is not what's needed. It's not necessary, but it's what the same people who want this big tax break, those same people want the thing to stay in balance, right? So it's at cross principles. So that's, I think, going to be one problem. I think that on everything else, it's all about details. We don't know what the pre-case thing is going to look like. Is it going to be? Is there going to be a share of somebody's income that they're going to have to pay in to get pre-K? Is it going to be funded completely by the government? Is it going to be a federal-state partnership? Is it going to be publicly provided? Is it going to be a public-private partnership? And that's just one aspect of what are many of the same kind of decisions that you have to make on each one of these items. And so I think that if you think of it that way, almost everything is a poison pill, right? Almost everything could derail the process. The question is where, the question is not just where Manchin and Sinema and the conservative Democrats are going to take their stand, but where are the progressives going to make their stand? One thing is there's been kind of conflicting discussions about what they're doing with Medicare. Is it just going to be the increase of adding dental, vision, and hearing, or are they going to try to lower the Medicare eligibility age to 60?
Yeah, which, by the way, both incredibly popular provisions, like 90%, and also it tends to be people who actually vote. So people so both parties, there should be bipartisan consensus on this. But of course, in America, it never happens because, Republicans have nothing to gain from doing good things for people when they are in the minority party. And they don't even have anything to gain from doing good things for people when they're even in the majority. So Democrats at the very least.
Yeah,
go ahead.
And even from the stupid budgetary standpoint, lowering the Medicare eligibility age is a big win, because what are you doing? You're taking people who are 60 to 64 and you're putting them into Medicare. These are younger and usually not as sick people who you're putting into the Medicare risk pool. That makes that risk pool overall cheaper. It saves money.
Yep.
What are you doing on the other side? You're taking out the oldest people and taking them away from that risk pool. It actually makes that risk pool also cheaper and easier to manage. So it actually is a win on both sides of the insurance equation. So yeah, I mean, so our progressive is going to say we have to have that. We need that into the bill. These are the questions that are going to be hashed out over the next month.
Okay. So, are you overall hopeful, or are you a little bearish on this?
I think, as I said, I think there's a non-trivial chance that it all blows up. There's a lot here that you have to reconcile among people who have wildly different interests and worldviews when you're talking about the entire breadth of the Democratic caucus. But there's one thing keeping them all together, and that's their sort of political survival instinct. The idea that the only way that Democrats get to keep their nice offices and being in the majority and their gavels is if they go ahead and pass this. And that's pretty powerful. And also, making their president successful and keeping the majority and keeping the White House. So there's a lot keeping this up in the air, even though you can think of any of 100 different ways that it could fall apart. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I think that means I'm somewhat bearish. I don't know that you'll get all 3.5 trillion. You might have to do a peace offering to the mansions of the world, whether it's 100 billion, 200 billion, something like that. Something's probably going to get cut. That's probably pretty important. And
any sort of green energy initiative, probably.
Well, we haven't even talked about that. I mean, there's a huge amount of green stuff that needs to be in here. The biggest being the clean electricity standard, which would put a cap. It would say by 2035, 80% of all electricity has to come from renewable sources. And that renewable means solar and wind. It does not mean gas, which Schumer has said specifically, like gas is not included in that clean standard. That's the biggest thing, but there's also, as you said, a lot of tax breaks for electric vehicles, for clean energy investment, and what have you. Yeah, I mean, I think they risk a lot if they use that as the place where they're going to cut. And here you have a real clash of wills, right? Because you have Manchin, who literally shot the Green New Deal in a campaign ad with a gun. And you have, people like Sheldon Whitehouse who have said for years that this is the most existential crisis that is facing the United States. And you can add Ed Markey into that or whoever. So those two sides have to reconcile, like who is going to win out in that battle and who's going to swallow their pride. So again, that's just one area of many that you have to figure out on this.
And the application of pressure that you can put on, congressional members who are at risk of being redistricted out or being bullied is not the same as the kind of pressure that you can put on, unfortunately, senators, especially senators like Joe Manchin, who live in a fucking plus 35 Trump, plus 35 red state.
Right.
He clearly doesn't care about the people of Virginia. Like, he doesn't care about his own constituents. He's gone against their best interest with... that
would be West Virginia.
Or sorry, West Virginia. You're right.
But yeah, and he's not even up for re-election.
Can't believe I said
and
Virginia.
It's unclear whether he's not up for re-election next year, and it's unclear whether he'll ever be up for re-election again in the Senate. In 2024, he might just say sayonara. I mean, he's an old dude. So it's hard to see what leverage you have. There have been reports that Manchin said he'll be a team player, just give me something. But climate's going to be a big issue there. And with Sinema, I mean, certainly her numbers are absolutely cratering in Arizona among Democrats.
Wow, that's shocking.
So,
who would have thought?
Yeah, right. But she's not up for re-election next year either. So she might feel like she has a couple years to figure that out. Whereas someone like a Maggie Hassan, who's in New Hampshire and is facing a very tough reelection campaign, what does she see as in her political interest with respect to this? Mark Kelly in Arizona, going to be up for reelection next year, and so on. So it's there's a lot to work through and not a lot of time to do it. And as you say, I mean, the pressure points, they're there because you can build this into, this is whether we keep the majority, this is whether we keep the White House, this is whether you get to keep your chairmanship or subcommittee chairmanship. There are all sorts of things that you can say to a member to get them on board. But and then there's the other point of this, which is that traditionally how these things have gone is that progressives at the very end are asked to take one for the team. I mean, that's why this has been so strange to see.
I can see that
right?
happening.
I mean, this is you to see Pelosi operate kind of in lockstep with progressives, which is what she's done on this point, has been a bit of an anomaly. I mean, it's not something that you always see. She did it because she felt like this was the path of least resistance for her, but that might change. That might change down the road, and she might say, well, now in order to get this done, I'm going to have to knuckle under the progressives because there's no other way we can pass $3 trillion or $2.5 trillion or whatever it is. So those things can change quickly.
Ultimately, I mean, we're talking about Nancy Pelosi here, but like, I think you and I probably both agree that she is significantly better at whipping the House than Dick Durbin and Chuck Schumer are at the Senate. They have conflicting values in a lot of instances.
I don't know. I mean, Schumer did seem to get the budget resolution done without any trouble. I mean, Gottheimer said, put us through several days of agita trying to figure out, what to do with the budget resolution. Sinema, even though she said she was opposed to $3.5 trillion, passed the budget resolution without argument. So
yeah, but I think that's because it hasn't been written yet.
What's happening now is kind of upending. Yeah, it hasn't been written, but what's happening now is kind of upending the common wisdom here that Pelosi knows how to count and Schumer doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, I think what we've seen is Schumer's done a pretty decent job at this point, just on a logistical, a tactical level, of getting an infrastructure bill with 68 votes through the Senate, and so far getting the budget resolution done. But as you correctly indicate, there's miles to go here. You have literally an entire bill to be written.
And that part of the process could be held back dramatically, I feel like they could slow that down. And now that you have a deadline, now that we have an established deadline, the lack of time is, I feel like, going to work against the progressives.
Right.
That's
one
the fear
theory
that I have.
That's one theory, but I do think that there are several kind of aces in the hole that progressives have. One is all this, the only thing that the budget resolution, the thing that passed the House today said is you get a vote on September 27th. It doesn't mean you get a successful vote on September 27th. And Democrats, progressive Democrats can certainly say, we'll just vote it down and you'll have to come back later. And now you won't have a guaranteed vote. Yeah, I mean, I think there are options there. And now the question is, are there enough Republicans who would come in and vote for that bill to offset the Democrats? I don't really think so. I mean, Donald Trump has been steadfast against the infrastructure bill. There was a whole Marjorie Taylor Greene press conference that was talking about it. McCarthy has turned against it. I don't think that in the House, I think the dynamics are different, and it's harder to oppose from a Republican standpoint. It's harder to oppose something that Trump. It's harder to support something that Trump opposes because you're all up for re-election next year, right? Whereas if you look at the Senate and what Republicans actually voted for the infrastructure bill, almost all of them weren't up for re-election next year. They were either retiring or they weren't in cycle. I think there was one member, and it was Lisa Murkowski, who's already burned her bridge with Donald Trump, who voted for the infrastructure bill while being up for re-election in 2022. So I just think the dynamics are different, and you're not going to have enough Republicans willing to buck a leader of their party, Donald Trump, in order to offset how many liberal Democrats and progressives you would lose if you brought that infrastructure bill up under the circumstances where reconciliation isn't done.
Yeah, that. I mean, we'll see what happens. I was definitely a little bit more excited last time around. I was definitely a little bit more.
What do you mean last time around?
Well, not last time around. Before I had this conversation with you, I was certainly a little bit more. I was certainly a little bit more excited about the prospect of this double bill, but now not so much.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be unenthused. I mean, I do think that there's a pretty decent shot that something will pass. Now, will it be the entire 3.5 trillion? Maybe not. But will it be significant? I mean, $3.5 trillion in one bill would be the largest bill in American history. Even if you backed that down to $2.5 trillion, I think it would be the largest bill in American history. And, you know, there's a lot of good to be done. And a lot of these things are very popular and progressive. I think it's a better than even money bet that something gets done, just because it would be so catastrophic for nothing to get done. And I don't think there's an avenue for just the infrastructure bill to get done. I don't see it. I mean, maybe you disagree, but I don't see there's a way where only the infrastructure bill passes.
Okay. I think so too. I agree.
But yeah, I mean, you know, it is uncertain, and you know, it's going to take a lot of effort, particularly even from people on the outside, to agitate and talk to their representatives and say, you know, we want this and that.
Absolutely. David, is there anything else you want to add to this convo? I want to talk to you about the infrastructure, but you know,
no, that's it, man.
This was once again incredible.
I just want an invite when we get the house put together.
You come bring your bathing suit so you can come hop in the pool. You know, we'll do some jacuzzi content this time.
Right.
We'll talk.
Is it okay to get the gold-plated floor wet? Is that all right?
Yeah,
or
no,
should
totally.
I bring a towel?
I love the like. I've already been doxed into oblivion. But it's certainly not as fancy as the way that people on the internet think it looks, because it's California. So unfortunately, in West Hollywood,
those lots are not very big.
No, it's 6,000 square. The lot is 6,000 square, and then the house is 3,800 square feet,
which is nice. I mean, that's nice. That's certainly nice, but that's, you know, we're not talking about Bel Air.
Yeah. Okay, Dave. I mean, listen, if I got that, I think, you know, people will probably be trying to murder me, even though they are already currently trying to murder me. So there's that.
Well, stay strong, man.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for coming on, David. Where can people find you? Is there anything you want to plug?
Sure. Prospect.org. We're at it every day. We actually have a newsletter about this whole infrastructure package. It's called Infrastructure Summer. And if you go to prospect.org/newsletter, you can just sign up to that. You'll get it in your inbox. And I'm on Twitter at DDayen, DDAYEN.
Like Hot Boy Summer, but for infrastructure. Thanks a lot, David. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man. Later.
All right, folks, that was David Dayen once again. Thank you so much for coming on, David. He's wonderful, brilliant, insightful, offers a lot of analysis and that you wouldn't normally be able to get anywhere else. But, of course, why the fuck do I do this to a group of individuals that have the collective IQ of 3 and immediately fucking lose their shit when I'm not paying attention to the chat the entire time because y'all are a bunch of fucking babies Oh my God. Chat, let's do a challenge one time, okay? Like, don't behave like little children every single moment that I'm not like paying attention to the chat challenge, okay? Make it cancerous for me to have guests on. Holy fuck. Anyway, hopefully that was informative for some of you. This is an incredibly important bill. And it is historic. And I don't know what we're gonna end up with. I don't know. The Biden administration has shocked me so far. That gives me a little bit more. I don't know. That gives me a little bit more comfort that things may be looking not so bad. But who knows? Joe Biden also. AOC states our position remains unchanged. We only vote for the infrastructure bill when the House passes a reconciliation package that delivers on overdue promises like lowering drug prices, fighting climate change, supporting child care, and providing vision and dental care to seniors. There it is, folks. The Progressive Caucus is standing firmly, and that is where we are at.
Before I update you on the meeting that I had with leaders of the G7 earlier today, I want to say a word about the progress we're making on the Build Back Better agenda here at home. I just got off the telephone with the leaders in the House. Today, the House of Representatives taken significant step toward making a historic investment that's going to transform America, cut taxes for working families, and position the American economy for long-term growth. When I became president, it was clear that we had to confront an immediate economic crisis, the most significant recession we've had since the Depression, or at least since Johnson. But we weren't going to. But that wasn't going to be enough. We also had to make some long-term investments in Americans and America itself. The first thing we did was to write and pass the American Rescue Plan, and it's working. Our economy has added 4 million jobs in my first 6 months in office. Economic growth is up to the fastest it's been, the fastest rate in 40 years, and unemployment is coming down. Right now, our economic growth is leading the world's advanced economies. But to win the future, we need to take the next step. Today, the House of Representatives did just that. Today's vote in the House allowed them to consider my Build Back Better agenda, a broad framework to make housing more affordable, bring down the cost of prescription drugs by giving Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices for drugs, make elder care more affordable, provide 2 years of free universal high-quality pre-K, and 2 years of free community college, provide clean energy tax credits, continue to give the middle-class families the well-deserved tax cut for daycare and health care that they deserve, allowing a lot of women to get back to work primarily, and provide significant monthly tax cuts for working families with children through the child care tax credit. These investments are going to lower out-of-pocket expenses for families and not just give them a little more breathing room. In addition, we're going to make long overdue, much-needed investments in basic, hard infrastructure of this nation. This is an area where we have broad bipartisan agreement to invest in our antiquated roads, highways, bridges, transit, drinking water systems, broadband, clean energy, environmental cleanup, and making infrastructure more resilient to the climate crisis, and so much more. And this is all paid for. Instead of giving every break in the world to corporations and CEOs, by the way, 55 of our largest companies in America paid $0 in federal taxes on more than $40 billion in profit last year. We can ask corporations and the very wealthy just to pay their fair share. They can still be very wealthy, they can still make a lot of money, but just begin to pay their fair share. So we can invest in making our country stronger and more competitive, create jobs and raise wages, and lift up the standard of living for everyone. The bottom line is, in my view, we're a step closer to truly investing in the American people, positioning our economy for long-term growth, and building an America that outcompetes the rest of the world. My goal is to build an economy from the bottom up and the middle out, not just the top down. And that's what we're on our way of doing. Look, I want to thank Speaker Pelosi, who was masterful in her leadership on this. and Leader Hoyer and Whip Clyburn and Chairman DeFazio, the entire House leadership team for the hard work, dedication, and determination to bring people together so we can make a difference in people's lives. I also want to thank every Democrat in the House who worked so hard over the past few weeks to reach an agreement and who supported the process for House consideration of the Jobs and Infrastructure Plan, the Build Back Better effort. There were differences, strong points of view. They're always welcome. What is important is that we came together to advance our agenda. I think everyone who did that, I think everyone who did it was there. Look, I also want to thank everyone who voted to support the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. You know, advancing, it's an act to restore and expand voting protections, to prevent voter suppression, and to secure the most sacred of American rights, the right to vote freely, the right to vote fairly, and the right to have your vote counted. The House is active. The Senate also has to join them to send this important bill to my desk. And the Senate has to move forward on the People's Act, critical legislation to protect our democracy and the right to vote. We need both of those election bills. But let me now turn to Afghanistan.
Bro, Republicans could literally murder like a decent chunk of their voter base and still get away with winning elections as a consequence of their gerrymandering and the way that they've designed the system for the minority win. It is wild. It's wild to consider that this is the reality. By could, I mean they are currently. They literally are at the moment with COVID. They're murdering their fucking fan base, dude. Okay. I don't know what the I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know what the bill's going to look like. I don't know how he plans to tax corporations. I don't know how he plans to tax the wealthy. Good ideas overall, ideas that I'm totally on board with. However, I don't know what the Democratic Party is going to do. I don't even think he knows how that's going to happen regardless. We're going to move away from this now. I think we've like covered this enough.